Hello there. Scotland is about to become the highest taxed part of the UK. Will this be a step too far for Nicola Sturgeon? Now, if you haven't already done so, please do subscribe, click the little bell, select all, and then like and comment below. Well, what a test for devolution. Nicola Sturgeon's SNP government has decided to raise the rate of tax on the top two income tax bands by another penny as from next April as part of its budget. This will make Scotland the highest tax part of the UK. Now, the Scottish Government is allowed to deviate from Westminster income tax rules to a certain extent. And in Scotland, higher rate taxpayers already pay 41% instead of 40% in the rest of the country, and top rate taxpayers pay 46% instead of 45% the rest of the country pays. But now the Deputy First Minister of Scotland, John Swinney, has declared that these rates will now go up to 42% and 47% respectively. Responding to this, Dr. Liz Cameron, CBE, Chief Executive of the Scottish Chambers of Commerce, or SCC, said, "Businesses and households are navigating an extremely challenging period of high energy costs, rising inflation and higher borrowing costs. The specific decision by the Scottish Government to widen the divergence on income tax rates between Scotland and the rest of the UK is exceptionally concerning. Many will be left pondering today as to who in the Scottish and UK government is standing up for the economy to help businesses survive this crisis and keep people in jobs." Now, a 1 penny difference in tax rates for the wealthier, more mobile part of the community might be tolerable, but 2%? Remember that within the tax bands, this actually equates to paying 5% more tax in Scotland for a higher rate taxpayer and 4.4% higher for those in the top band. Now, the rest of the UK's socialist-leaning community will be looking on this as a good test of their belief that taxing the wealthier is always the best way ahead, and that everyone in progressive Scotland has been champing at the bit to pay more tax. They will be viewing this as a very good experiment in the run-up to what is probably a very left Labour administration within the next couple of years. Very much like the Thatcher community charge experiment to replace rates with the poll tax back in 1990. Now, I'm not saying there'll be riots in Scotland. No, more of an erosion of support for the SNP by those getting squeezed, as well as a gradual erosion of the aspiring at the top end of the workforce as they eye up opportunities south of the border, and loss of support from business as they have to pay more for good talent to stop them moving south. Here's some more of what Dr. Cameron of the SCC said. "This is a clear disadvantage for Scotland's businesses and workers and could position Scotland as a less attractive place to live and work. With over 350,000 people alone in the higher tax rate bracket, questions remain on the impact this will have on talent attraction, retention, consumer confidence, and indeed departure of workers to other parts of the UK. Sounds like there are many people in Scotland who are not as enamoured with internal wealth redistribution as the SNP and Greens would have you believe. That a sizable chunk might start a brain drain out of Scotland. Then there's the matter of the evidence that points to this being a sound economic decision to take. Remember, the SNP MPs in Westminster are always calling for the UK government to publish this and that data and legal advice, etc. Well, Dr. Cameron also said, "We urge the Scottish Government to publish its economic modelling of this policy decision, specifically on the proposed impact this would have on future investment decisions by companies." Does that mean there isn't any data to back up this socialist political decision? No equivalent of an OBR report with graphs showing potential outcomes? Well, knock me down with a feather. Now, Scotland already gets about 30% more per head from the public purse via the Barnett formula than England does. So where will this extra money go in Scotland? Wasted on more failed ferries? Or possibly enriching a random steel tycoon? To join that missing 600 grand in party funds maybe? Or to pay for more IndieRef campaigning instead of bettering the lives of the people of Scotland? And here's a prime example of what happens when the government locates a pot of money and starts to squeeze it dry so it can waste ever more buckets of cash on virtue signalling and the rest of it. The biggest North Sea energy producer, Harbour Energy, has decided not to drill new oil wells because of the huge windfall taxes that could incur. Cue much celebrations by the eco-loons as they stupidly welcome in a period of even higher energy import costs to keep us heated and the lights burning. Harbour Energy has decided instead to halt all new projects and rely on their current operations while they review their financial position and the impact the windfall taxes might have. They're not going to bid on these new oil well opportunities the government is offering. Remember that the French company Total Energies has already announced it will be cutting £100 million in investment because of this tax. And Shell is in the process of reviewing its £25 billion worth of investment plans. And according to the Telegraph, Harbour is expecting to pay $900 million in tax to the UK Treasury, of which $400 million will be windfall tax. Now, I have no insight into oil companies and their thinking for making such decisions. But it would not surprise me if it was not so much about today's windfall tax position as the prospect of what might happen under a Labour administration in 2 years' time. Remember, these oil and gas projects take decades to put together and become profitable. Can you imagine putting something together today, spending billions on it over the next 2 or 3 years, then along comes Starmer's hard socialist net zero zealots who smack you right on the hooter with even higher windfall taxes? Or even just higher taxes purely based on net zero. Something that would destroy the whole financial basis for that decades-long plan overnight. Companies that run big long-term projects such as this need economic and tax stability. If a government cannot offer that, then don't be surprised when these companies pull their horns in or move elsewhere, which in both cases reduces your potential tax take. Were I an oil executive, I would be worried now what will happen when they just sit back and restrict their output to try to not trigger windfall taxes. Will the government come after them with another tax anyway on their ordinary non-windfall profits? Unpredictable tax decisions make for unpredictable business decisions. But in the case of energy, it brings on a very predictable energy crunch. And finally, when subscribing, please don't forget to press that little bell and also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. And thank you all so much for taking the time to watch the show.